Hello, everybody. I can see the chat is already popping off over here. If you are live with me, hello, come and say hi in the chat. Oh my God, the live just jumped up and I can see that there are 54 people live here already. Um, by the way, I checked the registration for this before I went live, and there was over 380 people signed up, and that has just blown my mind. So whether you are watching on the replay or you are here with me live, thank you guys so much. Like, I cannot believe how many people have signed up for this workshop, how many people have watched the video that I posted on YouTube last week, and all of the lovely messages and emails that I've got over the weekend about how excited people are for this workshop and how excited people are for the opening of the fourth round of my Amazon KDP course. I am like a mix of nerves and excitement right now because I've never had so many people sign up for a live workshop. So I was literally shaking. I was struggling to plug in the USB of my mic before I jumped on. So um, welcome. I'm just gonna have a couple of things going on here. Okay, so as I said, if you are joining live, jump into the chat and say hi. It's just me here managing the chat, but I am gonna do my best. Oh my goodness, we're up to 66 people live. This is amazing. I'm so grateful for all of you. Welcome to my mini KDP workshop about getting started publishing with Amazon KDP. Hello to everyone who is jumping in live. Oh my goodness, we have people from watching in Rhode Island, in Texas, in Berlin, in Canada, in Illinois, Cape Cod. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Isa said, my life keeps resetting. That's so weird. Isa, try watching on Chrome. Sometimes it can be a little bit glitchy on Safari. If you're watching on Safari, try refreshing, go out and come back in on the link on a Chrome browser. That usually works better on Chrome. My goodness. Well, welcome everybody. Oh my goodness, the counter is up to 76 people now. I'm sorry, I'm so excited. I've never had this many people join live. Most of the time, we have max like 100 people register for a live, and then most people watch on a replay. So I am just like emotional seeing how many of you are joining me here live. So I hope that for the next little while that you're here with me live, I'm going to share a ton of value with you. I'm going to go over some of the things that I talked about in my YouTube tutorial that I shared last week, and then go into a little bit more detail about things like royalties, etc., and how KDP actually works and who it's best for. And then, of course, I'm going to answer a ton of your questions. And I'm going to do something I have never, ever done before, which is I am going to open my KDP course live at the end of today's live stream session. So if you are watching live, I'm going to open it while we're here together. So I'm going to stop nervously rambling on, and we're going to get into today's content. A little bit of an introduction as to what we are going to cover today. I'll do a quick introduction because there are so many of you who have signed up to this who are new to the world of Laura Jane illustrations and the world of my work. So we're going to get to know each other a little bit. Then I'm going to go into a little breakdown about what Amazon KDP is, what kind of books we can self-publish on Amazon KDP, and kind of what I use it for, which is the more like creative side to self-publishing that some people might actually not be aware you can use Amazon KDP for. We're going to talk about who can use and self-publish on Amazon KDP. I'm going to share with you my self-publishing roadmap, which is a breakdown of a self-publishing project, because I've had a ton of questions about like, how do I do that? What is my workflow? Like, where do I start if I want to self-publish something? So I've got a roadmap for you guys with a full step-by-step breakdown from book idea to published book. Let me just monitor the chat here. I'm sorry, I'm here by myself, so I have to like keep an eye on the chat and like monitor it as well. While also like trying to run this. Then completely lost my train of thought. And Kathy, thank you so much for that. But I think they're blocked now. Right. Where was I? We're gonna go through who can self-publish, your self-publishing roadmap. And then I'm going to give you a sneak peek inside my course, Publish and Print It. I'll promise not a sales pitch at all. And a Q&A. Don't worry, Kathy. I have blocked that person. Don't worry. And yes, Tony, there will be a replay. So let's just jump into a little bit of housekeeping here, because as I've already said, it is just me monitoring the chat. And obviously there are a lot of people here, which I'm so excited about. So just a little bit of general housekeeping. If you've never done a live stream with me, you can use the chat on the right-hand side to chat amongst yourselves, to share comments or ask questions throughout the workshop. I try my best to answer relevant questions as I go, but sometimes if the chat is flying really, really fast, I might not see your questions, which is why at the end, there is a Q&A section. So if I don't answer your question, like while we're going through the slides, don't panic. I have like time set aside at the end just for questions and answers. And so those of you who are here live, you have that chance to kind of ask me some extra questions and I will answer them then. But I'll do my best to keep an eye and monitor the chat as I go. And if I see any questions pop up that are relevant to what I'm talking about in the moment, I will do my best to answer them then. As I just said, there will be a replay. So shout out to my replay heroes who might be watching this on replay as we chat. So if you are watching on replay and you have a question that I don't answer in the live, you can email me your question after. And the replay link will go automatically to everyone as soon as the live ends, which is why I set it up that you guys had to register for this. So that way the replay link automatically gets sent out to everyone who's registered. So that will land in your inbox as soon as the live ends. Tamara says, how long is the workshop going to be? It'll probably be around an hour, Tamara. In the past, when I've done this, it's just come up the hour point with Q&A. If you want to like stay for the main bit and dip off at the end for the Q&A, if you don't have time, feel free to do that. I'm going to take a sip of water because I feel like that was a lot of information already. And yeah, let me know in the chat, guys. Are you ready? Drop me a thumbs up if you are ready. And we're going to dive in. Let's see. I like to just make sure like the chat is actually working. I feel like there might be a little bit of delay. Right. The chat is not moving anymore on my end, so I hope it hasn't frozen. Let me know in the chat, guys. Give me a thumbs up. There we go. There we go. Sometimes there's a little bit of a day. We got thumbs up. Oh, okay, amazing. Now they're all just flying in at the same time. This always happens. Okay. Right. As I said, Bella says, so excited to start. Yay. Okay. As I said at the start of this, there are so many of you who signed up to this workshop through that video that I posted on YouTube last weekend. So I know that there are a ton of you who are new to the world of my work and relatively new to me. I also know there are a ton of you here who have been following me for a while and have been waiting for this workshop to come back for a while. But if you are new, let me just introduce myself. My name is Laura. I am the creator of Laura Jane Illustrations. I am mainly a freelance illustrator, but I also do a lot of like creative mentor work through my YouTube channel, through my Patreon, and through workshops and courses like this one. I have been running Laura Jane Illustrations for nearly over 6 years now. I think it's coming up 7 years in May. I keep getting the math on this wrong, but I know it's definitely more than 6 years. It started as an Instagram account and it has grown into just this amazing creative journey for me that has now become like my full-time job, from creating things like lots of different revenue streams, like for example, Amazon KDP, which we're going to talk about today. But if you are interested in seeing more of my journey, I share a ton of behind the scenes over on my YouTube channel. I upload weekly over there. And that is really like the best place to jump into the creative community. But if you are brand new to me, what you might not know is before running Laura Jane Illustrations full time, I was actually a primary school teacher and I have 8 years of teaching experience. So it's super exciting to me to be in this phase of my creative journey where I'm kind of stepping back into my teacher role, but in a fun, creative way where I get to work with other creatives to kind of share what I've learned over the last 6+ years with you guys, and lots of tips, and like no gatekeeping in this space is the point. So I personally have self-published multiple books on Amazon KDP. I have published 3 collections of planners and notebooks, so low content books. And I've also taught over 90 creatives how to do the same thing inside in my course. That's not counting like all of the people who've watched my YouTube tutorials on it, all of the people who have taken this free workshop in the past. I mean, there's already 80 of you guys here live. So there is nearly as many of you live with me right now as I have taught in the whole of last year when running the live run of my full course. So that is super exciting. And I've said that you could be next because, as we know today, at the end of today's workshop, I am going to open the doors to my Amazon KDP course for the 4th time, but we'll get to that later. Right. Let's jump into Amazon KDP because that is what we are here to talk about. I know that there is a ton of information about Amazon KDP out there online already. And I know when I started my KDP journey, it was both exciting and overwhelming to try and sift through all of the information that was out there. So what I wanted to do today is share kind of all of the basic important information that took me so long to figure out, because sometimes just Googling something, there is just so many different blog posts about it and forum chats. And so we're going to break it down, and I'm hopefully going to make it as clear as possible for all of you when you go away today. So what is KDP and how can we leverage it as creative business owners? So KDP stands for Kindle Direct Publishing. I want to shout out to the lovely viewer on my YouTube channel who pointed out that I had said this wrong in my video last week. Even though I knew it stood for Kindle Direct Publishing, I said Kindle On Demand Publishing. And then in the edit, I didn't even notice my own mistake. I just said it so confidently. I was like, yeah, that sounds right. That must be right. But Kindle KDP actually stands for Kindle Direct Publishing. So KDP was actually created by Amazon when they launched the Kindle e-reader, which is their like e-book for ebooks. And KDP was actually created to allow authors at the time to self-publish or republish EPUB versions of their books so that people with Kindle readers could read them. So the whole point of the platform was actually created to allow authors and publishing houses to convert already published books or upcoming published books into EPUB books so that people could download them onto the Kindle. However, since then, Amazon has developed KDP into this print-on-demand self-publishing tool for books. And it has even expanded in the last couple of years where it first started for Kindle and then it expanded to self-publishing for fiction and nonfiction books. We also now have what's called low-content books, which is like notebooks, planners, journals, and there's just a ton of options. And it's just kind of opened up this world for those of us who have creative book ideas to actually make them happen and turn them into real physical books, but also ebooks if you wanted to. So I've said here that Amazon has developed it into its own print-on-demand self-publishing tool for publishing ebooks, paperbacks, and hardback books. So there's like a ton of options of what you can publish with KDP now. The big question, of course, is like, how does it work? Because the first time that I heard about KDP was actually on TikTok. My fiance saw a TikTok about KDP and he sent it to me because he was like, is this the real thing? Because it sounds too good to be true. That was like 2 years ago now. I remember watching that TikTok and thinking, this has to be a scam. Cannot be true. How is it that someone can just like make a book? The person that had published the TikTok had made their design for their notebook on Canva and published it on Amazon. And I was like, this is definitely not true. But when I looked into it, I realized that it was true. And it really is as easy. I say easy in inverted commas. There is like a little bit of nitty gritty that you get into that is a little bit more complicated, but the basic summary of like how it works is you, the author, and by the way, you are classed as an author whether you are publishing a fiction, nonfiction, or low content book. So even if you're not publishing a book with like text in it, let's say, it still classes as the author. So you, the author, uploads a manuscript, which is your book file, which is a PDF, and a book cover to the Amazon KDP portal, and then you submit it for publishing. Then it goes through this review phase where KDP reviews what you've submitted, and once it's approved, it's available to shop in supporting Amazon marketplaces. When your book is ordered, Amazon prints it to order and ships it to the customer. Now, it's not available on every Amazon marketplace, but it's available on a ton of Amazon marketplaces. And also, it does ship to marketplaces outside of where it's available as well. So, for example, here in Europe, I know that it's available on Amazon.it, it's available on Amazon.co.uk, it's available on Amazon ES for Spain and a ton more as well. But if you are based in Ireland, for example, who are only recently getting their own Amazon marketplace, you can order from .co.uk and it ships to Ireland. So there's an example of, even though it's not, please excuse my dogs in the background, even though it's not available on every marketplace, it ships to pretty much everywhere worldwide, which is so exciting that you could design and publish a book yourself that would be available around the world, and you don't have to manage any of the printing, any of the packaging, any of the shipping. You don't have to order it wholesale and have it sitting in your office or your studio or your home unless you want to. That is an option as well. You actually can order your own books at print cost and resell them yourself. That is allowed within the KDP guidelines. So it's just a world of opportunity, which is very, very exciting. The next question that I get asked a lot, and I think is kind of the point where a little bit of confusion can come, is what kind of books can you actually publish on Amazon KDP? So there's two types of books that you can publish on Amazon KDP, or there's two kind of categories that books yeah, I love that. Bella says, POD, print on demand is the best thing since sliced bread. Yes, as a home-based digital creator, I completely agree with that. So there's two kind of categories that books fall into when self-publishing on KDP. The first one, which is not the first one listed here, but I'm going to go over to the right-hand side of the slide, and I'm going to talk about fiction, nonfiction books, which is basically any book with text in it. So you can publish text-heavy, non-repetitive books. Anything from a novel to a history book to a cookbook is possible. As creative business owners, books that fall into this category that you might be thinking about publishing are things like coloring books, art books, quote books, gift books, cookbooks, children's picture books, children's novels. So anything that has text or content in it, you can publish. The lesser known type of book that is possible to publish on KDP is what's called low content books. So low content books are books that have, and this is the definition directly from KDP. This is what defines a low content book. A low content book has minimal or no content in the interior pages. Low content books are generally repetitive. So that means the pages actually repeat throughout and are designed to be filled by the user. And examples of that are notebooks, planners, diaries, journals, prompt books, log books. For example, here on the desk beside me, I have a low content book that I published this year. This is my Build My Dream One Day at a Time daily planner notebook. So this does have variation inside in that, like, there's different colored layouts, there's like a green spread and then there's a yellow spread. There is pages of my artwork in the middle of it. So there is like quotes and there is text. But generally, the main body of the book is based off of this one template, which is the daily planning spread, and that repeats throughout the book. Amazing timing is that my Amazon order just arrived as well. So we're just going to keep going and someone else is going to answer the door. So to summarize, the main difference between a low content book and every other type of book that you can publish on KDP is that a low content book is designed to be filled out by the person who buys it, or it's generally repetitive. And the only kind of exception to this is coloring books. And this is one that I get like a question about a lot, which is even though a coloring book is designed to be filled out by the user, it doesn't fall into low content book because it's not repetitive. Generally, in a coloring book, every single page or every single spread is different. I'm going to put a star beside that question, Lindsay, and I'll come back to it at the end. I've pinned it so I can answer it for you later. So that is low content books or non-content or high content books, as I like to call them, but that's not actually the correct term. It's just fiction or non-content, fiction or non-fiction books. So it's basically low content book and every other type of book. So basically, if it can be a book, you can publish it on KDP. There's really no limits to what you can design and create with this, as long as it is within the KDP guidelines. So therefore, it's not harmful, it's not violent, it's not violating copyright terms, etc., etc. Have I missed a question there, Tamara? I feel like I've missed a question there. Right. I'm going to keep moving, and if I have missed a question about the journals, just pop it in the. Oh, same with creative journals. For low content / fiction, it depends on what the content of the book is. So it's like if it is to be filled out and it is generally repetitive in that the layouts of the pages are the same, then it's a low content book. If it's a journal where every page is different and there's like a lot of prompts and a lot of text, then you probably could class it as a non-low content, as in like every other book. There's no, like, Amazon KDP doesn't have a term for it. If it's not low content book, it's just a book. So yeah, I think you could probably class that as a book, Tamara. Right. Next question that I sometimes get is who can actually publish on KDP? Like, how does it work? Do you have to pay to set up an account? Do you have to be based in a certain part of the world? And the answer to this is basically anyone. Anyone can set up a KDP account. It's actually linked to your Amazon account if you want it to be. So basically all you need is a creative book idea, a plan, and some time to dedicate to making your book files, and you can independently make this happen. So if you have a dream to publish a book or a low content book, or you have a creative book idea, you can do it with KDP. To get set up, you will need to create an account and fill out a tax declaration form. So that literally takes a minute. It's like a W-8 or a W-9 Ben form. And so you can do it anywhere in the world. If you have an Amazon account, you just link it to your Amazon account and then you fill out your details as it prompts you to. You will have to have a bank account that you can link to your KDP account to receive payments. And once you have that done, once you have set up your information and you've linked your bank account, you can actually start uploading and publishing books on KDP immediately if you have your files ready. You can also create what's called an Amazon author profile, which is on a separate website, but then it links to your KDP books. So sometimes you'll see when you're browsing on Amazon, if you're looking at a book, you'll see like the profile picture of the author of that book pop up. And if you click on their profile picture, you can go to their author page and it shows you all of the books that author has published. And it gives you a little bit of a bio about them. And it shows you what their most purchased book was that month. And you can do that as well with your KDP account. You can create your Amazon author profile and you can link it so that every time you publish a new book with your KDP account, that gets added to your author profile. So in the future, you don't have to like try and share a link to everything that you've published on KDP. You can share a link to your author profile, and then people can see everything that you have published. I am seeing all of these amazing questions, and I'm putting pins on them to come back to them at the end for the Q&A section, so we can keep good time for those of you who are worried about the timing. So let's talk about getting paid. This is probably the biggest question that I get asked. The most common question is about how do payments work? And I see Tamara just dropped the question about payments in the chat, which I've put a pin on to come back to a little bit. Just going to take a sip of water. This is something that I didn't really go into in the YouTube video because I wanted to have the time to kind of break it down to you guys and explain how it works. I've said here at the top, I'm really passionate about helping other creatives build businesses that work for them. And so I don't want to gatekeep this information. But all of this information is out there as well. Like Amazon are very transparent about how royalties work on KDP. They're also very proud of the fact that their royalty rate is very competitive. It's like 60%, which compared to a standard book deal, which is usually somewhere between 5 and 10, it is a very competitive royalty rate. So potentially you have an opportunity to earn more in royalties by self-publishing than you would on the same book if you went through a traditional publisher. Now, obviously there's pros and cons when it comes to going through a publisher, as you might have like marketing support rolled into your book deal, but that's also not guaranteed. You more than likely would have to market your book yourself, especially if it's your first one. And so there are a lot of pros to going the self-publishing route. So how does getting paid work? Just like with a book deal, a traditional book deal, your earnings as a KDP author are based on royalties. Royalty refers to what you make as the author for every copy of your book sold. And it's exactly the same as a commission rate. So basically, your royalty rate is a percentage of the retail price of your book. You get a percentage every time a copy of the book is sold. You get a percentage. Amazon gets a percentage, and then a percentage of total retail price obviously goes towards covering the printing and like making of the book. So to break it down, your royalty is calculated by the listing price minus the printing cost, and what is left over is what you get paid. There is a ton of information about this, by the way, on KDP. There is a ton of charts that break down for you how the royalty rate works. But on top of that, as you are creating your book, you can set your book price. So you decide what your listing price is. And when you are setting the listing price of your book, it actually shows you, as you are setting that listing price, what the printing cost of your book is, so how much it costs to make the book, and after the book is made, what will be left over for your royalty. So as you are setting up your book listing, you can decide, I want to earn $2 for every copy of my book sold. I actually want to earn $5 for every copy of my book sold. This book took me ages. I would love to earn $10 for every copy of my book sold. If that's what you decide, you can set the listing price so that you know exactly how much you make for every copy of your book sold. So even though the percentage doesn't change, you can change what your royalty is by changing the listing price of your book, which is something that you don't usually get to do if you're going through like a traditional publishing route. The next question is, how and when do you get paid? I think Tamara had a question about this as well. When creating your KDP account, as we already talked about, you will need to set up your payment details, and then you will be paid monthly by each individual marketplace where your book is sold and where your book has earned approximately 60 days after the end of that month where the sale was reported. A little bit confusing, so let me break it down. This is also how traditional book deals work, but usually with traditional book deals, it is 90 days after the sale. So let's say you create a book now and you publish it the end of April, and it starts making sales in May, you will be paid the royalties that that book earned for the sales made in May in July. So there's like a 60-day waiting period from when the sale happens to when you get paid those royalties. The royalties are also paid by the marketplace where the book is sold. So you can choose, by the way, to list your book in all the available marketplaces, or you can just choose, actually, I just want to list this on Amazon.com, or I just want to list this on Amazon.co.uk, or I just want to list it on these 3 Amazons. And wherever it is sold, you will be paid like a separate royalty. So let's say 5 copies of your book were sold in Australia and 2 copies were sold in the US and another 5 were sold in the UK. You will get like a separate payment from Amazon.au and then a separate one from .com and a separate one from .co.uk. So it also means that you can see not only from your KDP reports, but also from your transactions coming into your bank account, from which marketplaces you're being paid and where your book is selling, and when it's selling as well. So I hope that that makes sense. You are paid by each individual marketplace 60 days after the calendar month in which it was sold. So basically, the only period that you won't get paid is like the first 2 months. After that, as long as your book is selling, you will get paid monthly, because there's no minimum threshold either. So for every copy, if your book sells 1 copy, you will get paid your royalties for that. Let me know in the chat if that makes sense or if I have explained that properly. Again, I'm seeing a lot of these questions. Let's bring this one up and have a look at this. Tamara says, can it be a direct bank transfer, or does it have to be over PayPal or Stripe or something like that? No, it is actually direct bank transfer. So you actually put in your IBAN code and it's paid directly into your bank account. There's no option to link a PayPal account or another account like that. It has to actually be your bank IBAN code. Isabel has asked, does that mean we have to pay income taxes in each marketplace? I don't believe so. You pay income taxes based on where you are registered, and I don't know if that's different places in the world. That is how it works for me where I am based. I am not a tax and finances expert, and so if you're ever unsure about what is the word? Sharing your earnings or like your taxes and stuff, I would recommend speaking to your accountant just to be 100% sure. That's what I did when I set up my account. And basically I just have to like submit my reports and it gets filed like that. But I know it's like different based on what countries you live in and stuff like that. Oh, whoops. I hit the wrong question there. Does posting on more marketplaces cost you more in listings? Oh, okay. Your listings don't cost you anything. I thought I should clear this up. It doesn't cost anything to set up a KDP account. It doesn't cost anything to list or create a book, and you don't pay anything to have that book created. So you don't actually pay anything for any creation of the books. When someone orders your book, it is printed and shipped to them. They pay the retail price. There is a printing cost that gets taken away from that, and then you get paid the little bit that's left over. I hope that makes sense. Okay, I'm going to pin that question, Kelly, and come back to it at the end as well. And I'm going to pin that one as well, Kathy. So I'm seeing all the questions. Some of them I am answering in the moment, and some of them I'm pinning so I can come back to them at the end. Let's keep moving because I am aware of the time. And just the last thing that I wanted to kind of share about like selling and how it works on Amazon. A question I get asked a lot is something along the lines of like, how many books have you sold? Is this actually profitable? This was like a direct question that someone asked me last year that I like copied and pasted from the message to put in here, which was, do you mind actually telling me how many KDP books you've sold? Amazon is so competitive. I'm wondering about the results and if the time invested brings good returns in KDP margins. So this, I actually took a screen grab today right before I jumped into this live session. There's some really great questions coming in and I'm seeing them all and I'm pinning them all so I can come back to them. Keep sending them. They're amazing. So I screen grabbed this from my KDP reports as of today. This shows from November 2023, when I created my KDP account, to today, April 28th, 2025, how many units of my books have sold. So I have sold 329 units, so 329 copies of the various books that I have listed on my Amazon KDP in a little bit of over a year, just under a year and a half since I created my account. And what I wanted to share this graph for is I wanted to talk about this question of like, is the time invested worth it in terms of the returns? And I wanted to debunk a myth because I see like every so often I'll see like a ton of TikToks where people are like, KDP is a massive moneymaker and all you have to do is hop on Canva and create a template and like put it on KDP and then it's going to automatically sell on Amazon, which is not actually the truth. First of all, creating the books do take time if you want to create something unique and different and that's going to stand out. And if you have a creative book idea that you've wanted to turn into a real book, which I think for most of you that are here, that is the case. You have a book idea that you want to get published, or maybe you've pitched to a publishers and it hasn't happened. A lot of my students that have been with me before, that was the case, and KDP was how they were going to like self-publish it. But you do actually have to market your books, because publishing it on KDP just because it's listed on Amazon doesn't mean that it's just going to sell by itself. And the reason I wanted to share this chart is I wanted to point out where the chart spikes. So you can see when I created my KDP account in November, my first book that I published was an annual planner. It was a 2024 planner. And I did a ton of marketing for that. I shared it a ton on Instagram. I shared it a ton on my emails. Like I was constantly posting about that in November and December and in January for like that new year push. And you can see like this massive spike in the chart where I sold like basically 80 units in the first month. And then you can see this dip down here in February. And the reason there's that dip is, first of all, because the first book that I published was a 2024 planner. So by February, sales were kind of like dwindling off. But also I stopped sharing it because I felt like it's not really relevant to share a 2024 planner anymore. And I was already working on my next collection, which, if you might be able to tell by this chart, I launched in March 2024. So again, you see this massive spike here in March and in April. And even kind of, it's kind of dwindling off here in May, June, and July. But in March and April, again, I was sharing it a ton. I was talking about it a ton. I was marketing it. And so you can see this spike in the sales. And then in the summer, I wasn't sharing it. And you can see like running into October and November, I was not sharing my KDP books. I wasn't posting the links. I didn't even have it in my link in bio for a while. And so it kind of just dwindled off. But what is interesting to me, and what was super interesting, because that was my first year being on KDP, was there were still sales happening in June, July, and August when I wasn't sharing the link. It wasn't really until September, October, November where we see like November, December here where it hits like 0. And then in the new year, I created my new collection of planners and we see this spike again where I started sharing about them. But I have not been as good sharing the links to those planners because, first of all, I was late publishing them. I was being really hard on myself about that. If you watch my YouTube vlogs, you will have seen my journey of trying to get these planners published. And second of all, at the same time that I published my planners, I was actually creating and promoting my other course, which I opened in the end of February, the start of March. And so I wasn't like doing the same kind of marketing push that I did in November and in March the previous year, where I was like talking about it a ton, posting about it a ton on Instagram. And so you can see, look, there was a spike. People were definitely buying it, but I wasn't sharing about it as much. Right. Lindsay says, does Amazon show your stats in your KDP account, or do you have have you compiled this yourself? No, you have a full dashboard where you can filter it from like all-time sales. You can filter it to show you royalties earned. You can filter it to show you the month. You can filter it to show you 90 days. There's a ton of amazing analytics that you can access in your KDP account to show you which of your books are selling, how many of them have sold, what your estimated royalties are, which marketplaces you're selling in. So there is a ton of information there. Sorry, it would be each person sells. Sorry, what I meant would anything each person sells show in their own account, not would your account stats show publicly. Oh yeah, so it's not public, don't worry. And so when someone clicks on Amazon, they can't actually see like this is sold 0 copies. Don't worry about that, or this is only sold 5 copies. I'm just sharing this with you guys because I wanted to be like transparent about the fact that I have seen in my experience that yes, they can sell, but it also is about the work that you put in as well, like talking about it, sharing your links, and putting it out there so that people actually know it exists. And the thing that I always say to the students inside my course is, if you don't talk about it, no one knows that it exists. That is like the best marketing advice I ever got, which is like, don't assume that people know that you've created this thing, or if they search for it, they're just going to know that it exists. If you don't talk about it, no one will know that it's there. Right. So let's move on, as I am aware of the time and I've chitty-chatted about the basics of it a lot, but I wanted to share with you a kind of breakdown. I need to move myself out of the way so you guys can actually see this properly. I wanted to share with you like a breakdown of a timeline of like, what would this actually look like? If you had a book idea today, how would you get that published? What would this timeline look like? How realistic is the workflow and the time and effort that goes into creating a KDP book for you and your current workflow and the current projects that you might have on your table? So here is my roadmap to be a self-published author by the end of 2025, or even by the end of this summer if you wanted to dedicate yourself to this project and really like work through it. So step 1 is setting up a KDP account. I've said here, time needed for this phase of the roadmap is max 1 hour. But honestly, it takes about 10 minutes. I have genuinely had, and when I do like the account setup module inside in my course, I have literally had students do the setup with me live while we are in the lesson, and it's done. It literally takes 10 minutes. But if you're like me and forms and filling things out get you a little bit overwhelmed and you want to make sure that you do it right, I have said max give yourself an hour to do it so that you can give yourself peace of mind, but you probably do not need an hour. I just sometimes take a little bit longer to fill out and stuff like that. Step 2 is creating your manuscript. Now, if you're doing a low content book where the internal pages of your book are generally repetitive and being filled out by the user, and you might have like a few different pages, like maybe you have like a page with some pattern at the beginning, or like an introduction page. So generally the amount of pages that you're designing is not going to be many, because the main bulk of your book is that page that repeats, or those few sets of pages that repeat. I've put here that if you were creating a simple low content book, the max amount of time that you would need to create your manuscript would be 2 to 3 weeks. And I'm being generous this time because again, I am a perfectionist. And this is generally how long it takes me to design a manuscript. But also you might be designing inside that 2 to 3 weeks, you could create 2 different low content manuscript books. I'm seeing all of these questions and I'm pinning them. So that is step 2. Once you've done your manuscript, step 3 is design your cover. KDP actually has a tool to help you do this. I talked about it in my YouTube video. They call it their KDP cover calculator, where you basically input the dimensions of your book, the number of pages that you have in it, and then it gives you a template, which becomes your cover wrap. Because when you design your cover file, it's basically like the book flattened. You design this bit that's going to wrap around the book. And so again, if you're designing a simple cover for a low content book, the max time that you might need is 1 to 2 hours. Maximum 1 day is what I would give for your cover. I would give it 1 day if, for example, you wanted to be really clever and you wanted to fill out your KDP bookshelf by doing different covers for the same manuscript, which is an option. That is something that I've done in my last collection, which you can see stacked up behind me on the desk. There were 4 types of journals, and each of those journals had 3 different covers. So for your low content manuscript, you might want to design 2 or 3 covers so that you could create 2 or 3 different versions of that book and get them up on your KDP bookshelf. Step 4 is uploading your project to Amazon KDP and adding your listing details. Time needed for this, I've said 1 to 2 hours. That depends on how detailed you want to be with your listing, how much SEO research you want to do for keywords for your title and description. But generally, the most time-consuming part about uploading your book to KDP is that book details page where you put in the title, the subtitle, the description, the keyword tags, and all that. That takes a little bit of time because you want to be really selective about the words that you use for your title and subtitle, thinking about like what would people be searching for that might help this book appear. So I've said 1 to 2 hours for uploading to KDP. Step 5 is submitting your book for review. That is when you've like put in all of your details, you've uploaded your files, you've set your listing price, and you know what your royalty per book sold is going to be. You're going to hit that big publish button at the bottom of your KDP listing page. And then it goes into the review phase where Amazon KDP will review the book to make sure it's not going against any guidelines, that the quality of the files that you've uploaded are okay, that the layout of the text is okay, that it's not outside any of the trim lines, etc. And this generally takes 2 to 3 days. They say 48 to 72 hours for your book to go into review. And from my experience, it generally does take about 48 hours. It also depends on the time of year that you're uploading. This is something that I've experienced and something that I was chatting with people about in the comments of my YouTube video last weekend as well, was that if you are creating books during peak seasons, like right before Christmas, it can take sometimes more than 72 hours for it to get approved because there's just such a high volume of stuff going up on Christmas, at Christmas time. Another peak time is right before back to school season is another peak time when a lot of stuff is getting added. And so there's a high volume of traffic. And so if you want to prepare for that, if you do want to have something created for those specific peak buying times, which of course is like highly recommended if you are pursuing this as like something you actually want to build as revenue in your creative business, then it's a good idea to like plan, prep, and create your books in advance of those peak seasons so that your review phase still only takes that 42 to 72 hours. So far we have a max day 1 setting up your KDP account 1 hour. 2 to 5 weeks is what I don't know why I was reading that as 3. Was it 3 on it? Yeah, it was. Why did it change to 5 there? I must have typed it wrong. 2 to 3 weeks for you creating your manuscript. So that would be 3 weeks. Another day to design your cover, another day to upload it, and another 2 to 3 days for it to be reviewed. So we're up to about 4 weeks minimum to get this uploaded. It's basically like a month, maximum 6 weeks if your manuscripts takes you a little bit more time. And then the final step, step 6, is to celebrate. Once your book is approved for publishing, the link will go live if it's a low content book. If it's not a low content book, you can actually schedule the release date that you want it to become available. So if you're designing, for example, a Christmas coloring book, you could start working on your Christmas coloring book in the summer. You could upload it, it could go through review, and then you could have your publication date set for the end of October when people are going to start searching for Christmas gift ideas. And so in the meantime, between summer and the end of October, you can start to prepare like some marketing materials. You can have like a countdown on social media, whatever it is. With low content books, unfortunately, you can't do that. Do share some tips about how to get around that inside in my course as well. So step 6, order your author copies and share your book link with the world. Total time needed from start to finish for this roadmap is about 3 to 6 weeks to go from idea to a physical copy of your book in your hands. Also, guys, there's great questions coming in. I am putting a pin beside all of them so we can come back to it at the end. Now is my moment. I don't want to be like, I'm not pushing this on anyone. I just want to share with you. Obviously, you don't have to do this alone, because I have created a course where I help guide you through a guided project to get your first published book up on Amazon. And I'm not going to talk at you too long about this. And I have pinned all of your amazing questions. I've got 12 question pinned that we're going to come back to after this. But I did want to just take a moment of your time to share with you my pride and joy. That is my KDP course called Published and Printed. So many great questions coming in, which is a guided 8-week course to help you learn and get published on Amazon KDP. So, what is Published and Printed? Published and Printed is an 8-week creative self-publishing intensive. It used to be called Passion to Profit, and then I've just recently changed it to Published and Printed as its new name because I felt like that was just more in line with what the values of the course are, what the experience of the course is inside in it. And the idea of Published and Printed is, I know that there is a ton of, oh my goodness, there's so many great questions. I know there's a ton of Amazon KDP courses out there. I know a ton of Amazon KDP content out there for learning. And so the idea behind Published and Printed is, yes, you will learn all of the basics, all of the details. I will guide you through them. I will give you live demos of like how to set up manuscripts. I will show you the design software that I use, the different options for design software, depending on your skill level that you can use to create manuscripts and create covers. But the key thing that you get is this coaching experience. It is very much a hybrid course where you have your live lessons, which obviously you can watch and replay if you don't want to watch them live, but you also get this group coaching experience where you get on-hand support in our dedicated Slack group. You can get one-to-one feedback from me on your final project. And I'm like keeping an eye on your questions as well. And so it's not just a how to use KDP course. It is actually a guided KDP publishing experience, because in the course, as I teach you about KDP, I will give you a creative project to also take action every single week towards getting your first book published on Amazon KDP. KDP, my Published and Printed course, is a little bit different because it does focus on the creative low content books. So low content planners, notebooks, journals, or coloring books or art books. So it's not for everyone. It's not for you if you are a fiction or nonfiction writer. It's not for you if you're only interested in publishing long form, heavy text novel style books. It's not for you if you've already experienced KDP and you don't need like a beginner friendly step-by-step guide, or if you're really looking for like a traditional publishing route of getting a book contract and a publisher to do this for you. It's also not for you if you're not ready right now to commit the time to working on a book project. If that's not where you are right now, then don't let me pressure you into joining Published and Printed. Who it is for is, I've designed it for creative business owners because I am a creative business owner. And when I started my KDP journey, I found it really, really overwhelming to weed through all of the information about KDP that was out there and find the parts that were relevant to me as an illustrator and as an artist and as a designer who wanted to create creative books and use the tool of KDP to publish them. And so that is why I decided to create Published and Printed, because I wanted to create something for other people like me that would give you that guided experience of, let's do something creative. Let's make a creative notebook. Let's make a book with your art in it. Let's design a coloring book together. And let's focus on how KDP can support us doing that. As I said, I ran this 3 times last year. I taught over 90 other creatives how to use KDP. I have had so many of my students come back to me and say that it was the best course that they've ever taken. And I'm not just making that up. I'm sure you've heard pitches like this and other people have talked to you about courses, and I totally get it. But so many of my students have had amazing success with the things that they've published on Amazon, thanks to my course. Stephanie of Stephanie Chin Art actually reached out to me recently. I followed Stephanie for years. I was shooketh when she signed up to my course when I ran it last year, because I was such a fangirl of her work. And so I was so nervous to have her as a student. And she had wanted for years to publish a coloring book of her first book that she published with her publishers, but the idea got rejected. And so she decided to self-publish it. And she enrolled in my course to learn how to do it. And her coloring book actually charted number 19 on Amazon in adult coloring books after she published it, thanks to Passion to Profit, or as it was called then, Published and Printed now. And this is a comment that she recently posted on my Instagram. Anyone thinking about the course, do it. So I'm so proud of my students and their success. And it's honestly like the best feeling to me that other people have been able to publish their book ideas, their coloring books, their journals, their notebooks, things that they've wanted to do for years, some things that they've pitched to publishers and not got through them. That is my long-winded way of telling you that I am about to open the doors. And for the first time, I'm going to do something that I've never done before, which is I'm actually going to click live as we are here in the call. So let me press some buttons, because I've got some buttons ready beside me. And I click this button, and I'm going to click this button, and I believe I'm just going to double check it before I share the link with you. So many great questions, by the way. I'm going to just double click it. Thank you for your patience. I can't believe how many of you guys are still here with me live. Okay. And okay. It is open. So before I jump to your questions, it is officially open. Published and Printed. It's officially open for the 4th time. If you scan the QR code now, it will take you to the Published and Printed page if you want to find out more in your own time, of course. But the last thing I wanted to share with you guys, the QR code is still there, by the way. I didn't take it away, is that I am running an early bird offer for those of you who registered for the workshop for the first 48 hours of doors being open, which starts now and finishes on Wednesday. I am offering an early bird offer on the full price plan, the VIP package, as well as the payment plans. And that's already been applied. So you can scan the QR code and go to the website now and find out more should you want to. It is officially open. So if you guys choose to join, I'm so excited to be welcoming in a new bunch of creatives. Right. I am going to leave the big QR code on the screen here, and I am going to go to your questions now. If you have more questions, you can drop them in the chat. I am also aware, for those of you who are live, if you want to stick around for the Q&A bit, you can dip out. Also, if you're watching on the replay, you can dip out. So let's look at some of the questions. First question, this is a very common question that I get, is what is the paper like? There are 3 different types of paper that you can publish with. There are 3 different types of print that you can publish in. So you can publish in black and white ink on standard white paper, black and white ink on cream paper, colored ink on standard paper and then colored ink on premium paper. I cannot remember the actual grams, the paper grams off the top of my head, but I really think the paper quality is pretty good. I do the standard color print for my own. I'm just gonna switch to full screen for a second so you guys can see a little bit closer. And you can see like there is a little bit of like see-through on the page. This is the standard. The premium, which I've done before, costs a little bit more. Obviously you don't pay for it, but it means that your listing price has to be a little bit higher. So you might need to tweak things around for your royalties a little bit. But that has like zero bleed. You see nothing from the page underneath it. So you can just see a faint outline of the print on the other side of this page coming through. But I use my own journals all of the time, and I personally prefer to use gel pens when I'm writing. And I have very little to no bleed through. You can actually Google the grams of the paper. I know that it is listed on KDP. I just forgot to have that ready for you, even though I knew that this would be a question that people would ask me, and I completely forgot to check it out. But I find it very, very good quality. You can also order proof copies when you are creating your book before you publish it. You can order what's called a proof copy. It is a copy that comes with a big watermark on it that says not for resale, but it is really good for if you're doing a journal and you want to test out like what is the difference between black and white on cream paper or color on premium paper. So you can order sample copies before you hit publish if that's something you really want to like figure out, because I know for people creating journals, that is something that matters a lot. How about drop shipping? KDP is a drop shipping model. So you don't do any of the shipping. Amazon handles the shipping for you. When someone orders your book, Amazon processes that order, they print your book, they ship it to the person who orders it. You don't have to worry about labels, shipping admin. Your books do not get posted to you for you to ship to the person. Amazon handles all of that. There is an option if you want to, when your books are published, to order them at print cost. So basically the cheapest cost of the book that it can be. You don't make royalties when you order copies of your own book for yourself, but when you order them at print cost, then you can also choose, if you want to, for example, to list them on your own website or in your own Shopify shop or on your own Etsy or whatever it is, and that's still within the guidelines. But if that's something you don't want to do, which, for example, I don't do that personally, you can just do the drop shipping print on demand version of KDP. I did answer Isabel's question about payment and stuff already. Right. I joined late, so I'm sorry if you've already said this. I'm newer to Procreate, but very interested in making journals. Any beginner tips / software for formatting sizes, like specs for journals, spine sizes, etc. I should be like popping up over this question, but it's hiding me, so I'm going to just pop the question away. So for creating books for KDP, and use Procreate if you want to. You can use Canva if you want to. You can use Photoshop. I personally use Adobe InDesign. A lot of my students use Affinity Designer or Canva. So you can use basically any software that supports exporting your file as a PDF. So you don't have to learn a new software if you don't want to. You can actually create your books on Canva if you want to. It's as simple as that, as long as you can export it as a PDF. When it comes to formatting it, and I did see another question about this. Let me see if I can pull it up about sizing and formatting. Yes, here we go. Is there a set dimensions, or can you make your book any size? There are standard dimensions, like standard book sizes. So you can choose from preset dimensions if you want to, but you can also input a custom size. So you can, if you want to, make the print size of your book any size that you want to. The print size is like the size of the page. So that's what you think about when you're making your dimensions, is like, what is the size of one page? And then when it comes to like the cover and the spine, that gets calculated for you using the cover calculator when you have your book design. So when you know the size of your page and you've created your manuscript which is your file that the pages for the inside of your book. You then put in the number of pages and the size of the pages, and then the cover calculator creates a guideline for you as in what size the front cover will be, what size the spine will be, and it will actually give you a template if you want to work directly on that template. So I hope that answers that. Do you personally do paid ads? I've never run paid ads using the A+ content myself. I don't think any of my students have done it either, but it is an option. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If you are creating something and you do want to run a promotion, it works exactly like a Facebook ad or an Instagram ad where you can pay to have Amazon list your book higher in Amazon rankings when someone searches for something that hits that keyword. So it is an option. It's not something that I've personally tried out myself, but it is possible if you want to do it. How do you stand out from the AI books on Amazon? My personal way of doing this, Greta, is that I actually just design and illustrate everything myself that I've created. I know a lot of you who are here with me today are in a similar position that you are illustrators or designers or graphic designers, or you draw in Procreate or something like that. And so what you're creating is already unique and individual and can stand out. The other side of it is that when you are uploading on Amazon now, because about 2 or 3 years ago when ChatGPT started off, there was a lot of people who hopped on this trend of like getting ChatGPT to write novels for them and publishing them on KDP, and making a small fortune off of it at the time. But now you do actually have to declare if your content is AI generated or not when you are publishing. Now, I don't know if that has any benefit in the Amazon rankings or the algorithm, but I think the important thing when trying to combat people who are making books with AI or using pre-bought templates is creating something that's unique and different, which if you are an artist and designer, you're naturally going to do that anyway. And thinking about your keywords for your title and your subtitle and putting in words that are like highly searchable, but also relevant to what you're designing. That plus talking about and sharing your book and marketing it in a real human way will connect it with the right people. It can be a bit of a long game if you're just starting out, but it can also build to be something that brings in a nice passive revenue into your creative business. Britta says, what happens when a customer returns my book? It gets deducted from the following month's royalties. And you also do see that data in your KDP dashboard. But you don't have to like pay that back. It will just get taken out of your next royalty payment whenever you make another book sale for your book. Stacy says, I create in Procreate, then transfer to publisher, but it won't publish because of the margins. Any tips? Also, is there an easier method to get from Procreate to an upload-able file? Okay, so my top tip for using Procreate would actually be to do Procreate to Canva, because you can set up margins in Canva. So my tip, Stacy, for you would be to do any of the illustrations and the designs that you want to actually draw and create yourself in Procreate and save them as PNG files with a transparent background. And then create your book file on Canva and because you can add margins on Canva, and then upload your designs from Procreate to your Canva gallery and create your page layouts on Canva. I don't actually recommend Procreate for creating your manuscript. It can work for creating your cover, but for doing the internal pages of your book, it's not actually the ideal software. Anyone who wants to use Procreate, I would recommend Procreate to Canva. If you want to just use a simple software where you can export it as a PDF with your margins and your bleed lines, Canva will do it for you. So that would be my top tip for that one. I received an email that I need to give them a government ID to maintain my KDP account. Is that new? I've never actually heard of that, Elle. You might need to update your tax information. But this is new. I would check if that is a spam email, to be completely honest, because that is not something that I have heard of. So just be really, really careful before you click on any links. Go to your KDP dashboard, because if there's something missing from your KDP account, it will tell you in your KDP dashboard. There will be like a little banner that comes up at the top telling you that you need to update information. So don't click on a link directly in the email until you check that. Question: with a coloring book, if you want the back of each page to be blank, do you need to put a blank page in your PDF? Yes. So when you create your manuscript, if you want to have like a page with an image and then a blank page, you'll have to do like we have to do blank page and then page with the image and then blank page with the image. Yeah. So you have to actually physically put the blank page into your PDF manuscript in order for KDP to put a blank page in when they build the book. There's also a previewer when you upload your PDF to KDP, where you can flick through a digital version of your book and you can check if your blank pages are in the right place. And if they're not, you can go back, edit your manuscript, re-upload it before you hit that publish button and go into the review phase and accidentally publish your book with the blank pages in the wrong place. I'm rather new here and I joined a few minutes ago. Is there a max file or something? I'm sorry if you've already said this earlier. In my experience, no, there is no max file size because it takes PDF. It just may take you a bit longer if you have a massive manuscript file. But no, I've not actually come up against any issues with large files and there being max files. There are a lot of guidelines for the dimensions, the margins, and the bleed lines and minimum resolution, but not max file sizes. Do you have to pay purchase price for author copies? Great question. I think I kind of already answered this. So when you create your book and you're choosing the price for your book, you are choosing the listing price. That is the price that people see when they look at your book on Amazon. As an author, you get to pay print cost for when you buy your book. That is the cost that it costs to actually just create a copy of your book. So you don't make a royalty when you buy a copy of your own book because you buy it at print cost. For example, the print cost of a book might be $5, but you might list that book at $10 or $12 because you're wanting your royalty rate. So you pay just the print cost when you order author copies. And then everyone else who buys on Amazon pays the retail price, which is the print cost plus your royalty plus Amazon's cut. Okay, is there an unusual amount of pages? Is there a usual amount of pages for each type of book, like a minimum number of pages? There is a minimum number of pages, Paula, but I actually can't think of it off of the top of my head. But if you message me on Instagram, I will actually Google that one for you because I know there is a minimum number of pages that you have to put in a book. But then after that, it's up to you. Obviously, the more pages you put in your book, the more expensive it is for Amazon to create that book, which means the higher the print cost of your book, which means if you want to make a decent royalty off of that book, the higher the listing cost for the person who's buying it. And so for a lot of people, the goal is to keep the listing price at a reasonable price for people buying it and still make a decent revenue through their royalties. And so it is about hitting that sweet spot of like enough pages, but not too many pages. And that really does depend on what you're creating. I think my daily planner, for example, has 123 pages in it or thereabout. But then I've had students who created coloring books and it's like way less pages than that. I think maybe like 30 to 50 pages for a coloring book. So it depends on the project. I know there is a minimum page. I cannot think what it is off the top of my head. But then after that, the sky is the limit. Is there also Options for hardcovers. Yes, there is. There is options for having it as a paperback or a hardback. I do actually have hardbacks of my own books over here. Whoop. So let me just pull this up big screen again. This is hardback with a matte finish. There you go, nice and chunky, nice solid hardback. There's also hardback with a glossy finish option, and the same for paperback. You can have matte or glossy finish on your books. Can you pause sales or stop selling a published book if you want to at some point? And if you do, does it still appear in your profile? Also, this might seem like a silly question, but can you edit your published book afterwards if you want to? Not a silly question at all, Bravna. Excellent questions. All of these are really, really good questions. You guys have asked such amazing questions. I'm just going to hide the question so you guys can still see me. So yes to all of that. You can unpublish a book at any point, which means it doesn't show on Amazon, but you can still see it on your KDP bookshelf if you want to republish it at a later date. You can also delete a book altogether so that it's not on Amazon and it's not on your bookshelf if you don't want to. You can also edit your manuscript or cover file after upload. You cannot edit your title or subtitle or your description, I believe, after it's been published, but you can edit your manuscript and your cover file. If you do edit your manuscript or your cover file, it does have to go back into the review phase again to make sure that the edits that you've made are not so far away from the original book that it would technically class as a new edition. But you can make edits if there's like an error in the manuscript, for example, like a spelling error or something like that. And then Amazon will review it and they'll just then make it available again with the new changes. Can you add books to a series? Let's suppose I make a coloring book and then I want to make a volume 2. Can it be linked to the verse book so people can find it? Yes, you can. You can have, for example, link a hardback version and a paperback version of the same book. So when people look at it, they can choose to buy it in hardback or paperback. And you can also create series so that when people buy, let's say they click on version 2, Amazon will actually show them that there is like a version 1 and a version 3, or like this is part of a series. So you can actually do that with non-low content books. Kathy's asking, what is a Slack group? A Slack group is basically a chat. So inside in Published and Printed, we have a Slack chat. It's basically like just like a group chat, a private group chat that you just download an app to your desktop, or you can access it online. And it's just where you can ask questions and send messages, and I'll share messages about the updates on the course. Sandra says, which tool is best suited to create a project? Canva, Illustrator, Photoshop. It depends on what you're comfortable with and what your skill level is, Sandra. I've had people create books with Canva. I've had them do it in Illustrator. I personally use a combination of Illustrator and Adobe InDesign to create my manuscript. You could do it on Photoshop if you wanted to. It depends on your skill. It depends on what you're creating. For the manuscript, obviously, Canva or InDesign or Affinity Design or anything where you can have one file with multiple pages inside in that file is better. But obviously, there are ways around it as well. You can create a notebook page in Photoshop and then build your PDF using duplicates of the like one single page layout. So there are lots of ways around it. I don't know if you guys can hear my dog literally slamming on the door outside to come in. Okay, that was all the questions I had pinned. Let me jump back to the live chat. Wow, okay. Someone has been really fast there. Anna said the minimum amount of pages is 25 pages. Thank you, Anna. And 79 minimum for color print. Thank you, Stacy. Have I missed any? Stacy says, do you know a rough cost difference between hardback and paperback? It depends, because the print cost of your book is not just calculated by the cover. It's also calculated by the cover finish, whether or not you use black ink or color ink, whether you use standard paper or premium paper, the number of pages that are in your manuscript and the size of your book. And so it's not just hardback or paperback that's going to make the difference in the price. It's all of those other different options in it. Bella says, I see a limited time off percentage on Amazon listings of coloring books. Is this something you control or is it something Amazon does? This is something Amazon does. I think there is a way to sometimes control it in your A+ content, but it's something that I personally haven't fully understood. I don't think you can do it with low content books for sure. I think that sometimes you can do it with coloring books, but I do think it's more what Amazon controls. And then how that works is that percentage off gets taken from Amazon's cut and not from your cut as your royalties. But as far as I know, and as far as I've figured out from my own experience, there is not a way to manually run a sale of your own books on KDP. Lindsay says, if I've missed any of your questions, by the way, because the chat was flying while I was answering the other questions, you can just re-drop them in. I will take a few more and then I will let you guys go because we have been here 20 minutes past the time. You guys are amazing. Can you talk about bleed line, please? What are they and how do they affect our pages? So a bleed line is a margin that goes around the edge of your page design. The idea for the bleed line and where it gets its name is you have your trim line, which is where the page gets cut. Let me just bring up a book so I can physically show you. So this is technically the trim line of my book. When it's printed, the pages will be printed a little bit bigger than what I'm physically holding, and then it will be trimmed down to size. That's where your trim line comes from. Your bleed line is when you add a little bit of extra around the edge of your design when you are creating it to allow for that cutting. So, for example, in my daily planner, let me take this bigger so you guys can see. I have parts of the design that go to the edge of the page and the color runs the whole way to the edge of the page. And so when that's getting trimmed, I don't want it to be that it gets trimmed in the wrong place and there's a tiny white line because I want this color to run to the edge. So when I'm creating my design, I'm going to make sure that this block of color goes past my trim line into my bleed line. You upload your file with your bleed line because the Amazon file can read that. And then when your book is printed and made, it gets cut at the trim line and the bits that were in the bleed line get trimmed away. And so that's how you get this effect where you have for example, full pages of art. Let me just grab one where the design is on the full page and there's no white border around that because I took that design past the trim line into the bleed line. It's a technical thing when you are setting up your files. You can set up a bleed line on Canva. You can set up a bleed line in Adobe Illustrator, in InDesign, in Affinity. I think you can do it in Photoshop as well. It's been a long time since I used Photoshop, but I think you can. You cannot create a bleed line in Procreate, which is one of the reasons that I say Procreate is not ideal for designing KDP book files. Great for making the illustrations, but not for actually designing the files. Ashley said, thank you. This has been so amazing and informative. You are so welcome. Bella says, thank you. Susanna says, if you use InDesign, what PDF settings should you use? You have to export your PDF, including bleed and margin lines, but not showing bleed and trim lines. I would have to have it up in front of me, but there's two different boxes. If you're familiar with InDesign, Susanna, you will know what I'm talking about. There is a box that you can check to include the print marks. You do not want to have that one checked. What you do want to have checked is include bleed and margin, because then KDP can read the bleed and margin even though they're not visible on the page. Right. Oh, this is a good question from Paula. Do we need licenses for assets like fonts? In the case of high content books like comic books or children's books, can we also publish on other markets or Amazon keeps the rights to the distribution? Right. So for using fonts, artwork, images, you do need the licenses for reselling. So if you're putting a font in it, use a copyright-free font unless you have bought a commercial license for that font. If you're using graphics or illustrations that have been created by someone else, make sure you have the licenses to resell those images, those graphics, those illustrations, because you can get pulled up for copyright if you do not. You can publish your book on other marketplaces. Amazon does not keep the rights of distribution. And in the case of high content books, as we're now just all calling it, because there's no other name for it, but that makes sense to me as well, Paula. You can also choose for an option that's called wider distribution. If your books are making a lot of sales, they can qualify for wider distribution, where bookshops can actually buy in your book in wholesale from Amazon and sell them in bookshops as well. But you can also sell your books in other places as well, on other markets. You can buy copies of your own books to sell to wholesale to bookshops if you wanted to. You can sell them yourself on your Shopify website if you want to. Amazon doesn't keep the distribution rights of the book. Right. I think that's everything. A few more questions about bleed lines and stuff, but what I am going to say is we have gone so much over the time. If you do have other questions, pop me a message on Instagram. You can find me as @LauraJaneIllustrations, or pop the question underneath my YouTube video from last week. I will answer it there. Or send me an email. My email, you can reply to the email, any of my email newsletters. If you don't have my email, just pop me on Instagram and I'll also send you my email. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this free mini workshop. If you are feeling the pull, Publish and Printed is now open. If you would like to come on a creative self-publishing journey with me during May and June of this year, the invitation is there. Don't forget to scan the QR code to find out more. If you are interested in it, don't forget to take advantage of that early bird offer that is available until Wednesday. And if you have any questions about the course, feel free to reach out to me in email or to send me a DM. I would be happy to chat with you. Thank you so much for joining me and giving me your time this evening. This has been such a fun session. I'm seeing all of you thank your messages. You are guys so welcome, guys. And the replay will be sent out to your email very, very shortly. So I will see you guys in DMs. I will see you in comments. And I hope that I'm going to see a few of you inside and Published Printed. Until then, I will talk to you then.